All right, we are back. How's it going, folks? How you guys doing?
We're good.
Good.
So I got a couple of comments, which is always very inviting. And one of them I think we should act on immediately before we jump in here. People want to know a little bit more about us and what got us going. I know way back when we first started, we did an intro segment. I think it's a perfect time to do a reset here. So I'll jump in first. So my name's Aleem. I live in the Lower Mainland and been an Oilers fan basically since birth. Was born and raised in Edmonton, and I've been out here for most of my, I guess, potty trained and adult life, and just been following the Oilers. And it's thank God for the internet and satellite TV, or else there was a time in an age there where we got to see them maybe once in a little while on Hockey Night in Canada. And the reason I started this podcast up is, honestly, we've been chatting a lot about just hockey in general. And Ahmed and I have been thinking about something to do together for a while. And this just made a whole lot of sense. And Ahmed, on that note, turn it over to you.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. My name is Ahmed, as you all probably know already, but I've been an beer league goalie and hockey enthusiast since 1987. I remember the first time I turned on the TV when I migrated to Canada, and the TV was in this little Winnipeg hotel room, was the Oilers kicking somebody's ass. And I decided right there and then, that's my team.
That's how we met. That's actually how we met. So
there you go.
Gonna hijack it again. I think you might not remember. You may remember. But we met. You were the realtor on a file. I was doing the financing, and it was a mutual client. And I think after that, I had reached out and I said, "Hey, transaction was smooth. Let's go out and celebrate." We had some sushi, and then I think you were wearing an Oiler hat, or I was wearing an Oiler hat, or something. And then basically, it was
that love at first sight, Aleem.
Yeah, pretty much. Oiler fan in Edmonton or Oiler fan in Vancouver.
Yep.
It's right in front of you, right? So
yeah.
we haven't gone like more than a few days without chatting ever since, and that was like 10 years ago. Right?
Yeah, been following the Oil religiously since '87. I've been through all the heartaches. I mean, as you all know, the big Gretzky trade, just as I was falling in love with the Oilers, and the decade of darkness and everything else with it. But yeah, through thick and thin in Vancouver, which is a very hostile place for an Oilers fan. That's where I was for most of my life. Once we moved over from Winnipeg, and now I'm in Alberta, so closer to the Oilers, not in Edmonton and Calgary of all places, but nowhere near as hostile as Vancouver.
He's in the Lions Den. He goes from Vancouver to Calgary.
Yeah, no, these folks, there's lots of Oiler fans in Calgary. I think they know what winning looks like, right? Wink, wink. So yeah, that's me, and to you, Brendan.
Thanks, Ahmad. So everybody, my name is Brendan Monroe. I'm a former professional sports broadcaster and writer. I've always had kind of one foot in the sports business and one foot in the finance business, which is how I got to know Aleem and Ahmad through my banking work. I grew up in Edmonton. Spent about 30 years out there. Growing up in Edmonton in the 1980s, cheering for the Oilers was really, really easy. Used to go to hockey games with my dad all the time. I got to go to the final game in 1988, game 4.5, after the blackout in Boston, and the Oilers hoisted the cup. So I was in attendance for that. That's how far back my Oiler route stretch. That was also Gretzky's last game in Edmonton, coincidentally. Won a little bit of a lottery one time. And got to go see the Gretzky retirement ceremony in Edmonton a couple of years later, and I think the 2000 season. Got to go to some Stanley Cup Finals games back in 2006, and then eventually moved out to the Lower Mainland as well, and hanging out here in the Fraser Valley. So lifelong Oilers fan. Have got to be around sports in Edmonton for quite a long time. Got to sit up in the press box at the old Rexall Arena a couple of times, which is a real treat, and raid the little ice box, treat box that they have up in the press gallery for regular reporters. I think that was locked the second time I went up there. But anyway, I've been around the team, around the sports community in Edmonton for a long time, and it's just easy to talk about the Oilers. And these are definitely, overall good days to be an Oilers hockey fan. I think it's frustrating sometimes to not see them win when you know they're capable of winning. But I was there with them when then winning wasn't even part of the conversation. It was like just compete hard. Just having a hard fought game and a close game was considered, the moral victory back in those days. So when Aleem said to me, we should turn some of our hockey conversations that we have into an online podcast style conversation, I thought that makes a lot of sense. And I've done a lot of broadcasts in my life as a junior hockey broadcaster, and I've probably broadcast more rugby games than anybody else in Canadian history, just by a matter of circumstances. Being in front of people talking about sports is something I really enjoy doing. So
I should, before Aleem jumps in here, I just wanted to say in our initial podcast, we kind of mentioned that this podcast is going to be by the fans, for the fans, if anybody watching out there. A little bit of a departure from the everyday media opinions, which are careful at times, and they kind of can't hurt too many feelings. And here it's supposed to be unfiltered, and we say what's on the mind of the fans, because obviously Aleem, myself, and Brendan, we listen to a lot of the radio shows and what the comments are online and whatnot. And I don't think that it's always reflected in what the media says. So we are here to express those unpopular, I guess, opinions, and Brendan's here to keep us in check, I guess.
It always surprises me, though, the professional, quote unquote, opinion of the team. I mean, there's so many times when I've questioned over the years whether or not these guys are actually watching games or just listening to sound bites or looking at highlights. And I think this is our opportunity to come in here and just let off some steam, right? Interesting. Before we move on, little parallel is both of us, like both Brendan and I, both Ahmed and I, on obviously separately, bonded over sushi and Oilers, right? Because Brendan, the first time we met, I think you took me out for sushi, like first time we went in person, and then found out that you were from Edmonton. Right?
That's true.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. I remember that conversation from fondly. And I'm actually glad, because we had lost touch just with the pandemic and whatnot, just shortly after that. And I think you reached out. Was it must have been in the finals of
the finals a couple of years ago, and I thought, who can I complain about the Oilers, decision making going into the Stanley Cup Finals, and how they're going to go against the Florida Panthers? And I said, I remember having a long conversation with you where I said, I think the Oilers are better than the Las Vegas Golden Knights, who beat up on the Florida Panthers last year. So I think this should be a pretty short and easy series. Oilers cakewalking their way to that first Connor McDavid Stanley Cup. It was a wrong take, but it felt good to make that take at the time, but it didn't work out that way.
Who would have thought that, arguably back, I mean, we're going back here, could have been up 3-0 in that series, but I'm glad you saved my number, because here we are today. And we're going to introduce another special segment. I think Brendan aptly named this the complaints department. I think that each week what we're going to do is we're going to assign a part of the team to everybody. I think, Ahmed, you've got the goaltending. Brendan, you've got the defense, and I've got the forwards. And we're going to find some stuff that we've, not only in our offline conversations, but we've noticed ourselves online watching the game. With what we see going on. And I mean, fans love that. Fans want to hear more of that. So we're going to do that. Let's start off with that segment. I think, Brendan, I guess the last conversation that we had, which ended up not airing due to some technical difficulties, was last week, but it's been a couple weeks since we've done the pod. You want to start off with the defense? Or should we start off with the last one? I think let's start off with the defense.
I think the defense overall has been reasonably good in the last few games. They're obviously picking up wins against Chicago, for example, which is a nice win. They got a point against Los Angeles, which I think they probably could have deserved too. And then last night I was watching the game against Nashville, and they're looking for a second consecutive win against Nashville. But they're obviously struggling a little bit with the effort at times on defense. And it started in the first period with well, if you look at the highlights, there's about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the first period. The Oilers have already given up one goal at that juncture, and Evan Bouchard decides he wants to skate through the whole team. And then he changes his mind and he tries to do this little 4-foot dump pass to the wall, and it gets picked off, and it's a 2-0 breakaway the opposite direction. Jari makes a really good save, but it was the start of a night for Evan Bouchard, who at times is so good when he has the puck, and sometimes just so desperate when he doesn't, and very mercurial. It led to a great save, like I said, on that first opportunity. But there, Evan Bouchard was again on the Eric Holla goal, standing in front of the net, just being really soft. He was probably in the right position, but he was just not connected with the man he was covering. When the rebound landed in front of the net, which predictably rebounds often do, he was on the wrong side of the puck, on the wrong side of the man, and just had no leverage to be able to extricate himself from that sort of situation. So I think Bouchard showed up one more time to kind of bookend the night in overtime, where he's trying to make a play at the offensive blue line. There was a turnover, and he wasn't really sure what to do. He wasn't sure if he should skate towards the man with the puck or if he should beeline back and try to be the last defender back. And in that moment of hesitation, they flip the puck over his head. So now he's got to backtrack all the way, puts Jari in a really crazy situation. And then suddenly Jari's way out of his net and Evan Bouchard's playing goal. But he's also not really playing goal because he's still trying to play defense, but he's also playing goal, but he wants to get out of the way from Jari crashing back into the net, and it all goes wrong. It just looked like just chaos. Now, I could also tell that Bouchard looked really gassed on that play. And I think anybody who's, played some hockey, even at the beer league level, knows what it looks like when the gas tank is empty and you're trying to make decisions and the legs are wobbly and it's just the end of the night. That's what it looked like on that overtime goal. And you could kind of tell he'd been spending a lot of time on the ice at that point and on that shift, and there wasn't much left in the tank. But kind of a rough night for Evan Bouchard. I think the fans like to get on his case sometimes because he is that mercurial defenseman. It can go really well, it can go really badly. But overall, I thought, the Oilers' defense has been okay. They're not making life easy sometimes for their goaltending. And Tristan Jari, I think, had a little bit of a rough night coming back. There was a couple of really great saves he made. We'll hand over that analysis to Ahmad, but overall, I think the defense sometimes made his life a little bit trickier than it needed to be. And hopefully the Oilers can tighten that up on their own defensive end as they go through the next, few weeks of the schedule.
Yeah, I think it's funny, just on Monday, I was talking to both of you. I think Brendan, we had a offline marathon of a conversation. I was praising Bouchard, and I'm the first one to jump on him when I notice lackluster defensive play. But I think that the plays that he made against was it on Monday again? Who were we playing? Forgot.
Chicago.
Was it Chicago? Yeah, Chicago. I mean, the elite play to Hyman coming down, his hands unbelievable at the blue line, right? Just had no, like, I feel like, you have to, no one's perfect in this league. He's not in the upper echelon of defending, but he's definitely one of the top 3 to 4, I think, offensively gifted defensemen in this league. And I was, apologetic on Monday, but yeah, there was a couple of pretty big gaffes. And I mean, part of this, when I look at it, my thoughts are this: is he's playing 30 minutes a night. We've got back-to-back games. It's overtime again. Does this fall on the coach for usage? I mean, not only for him, but for Connor and Leon as well. Like, they're playing.
Yes, some of it does. I mean, it seems like, the defense, the bottom pair with Emberson and who was it? Stastny on the bottom end. Like, I don't think they're getting a lot of minutes. I don't think the coach necessarily trusts that pairing quite as much. Jake Wallman got back into the lineup yesterday after a long time off, and he looked a little bit rusty. He was
especially the first couple minutes.
yeah, and I mean that's to be expected, but he's always played a game that's a little bit more volatile than other players out there as well.
There
So
was one sequence I feel like once he kind of got the feel to it. There's a sequence there where he blocked a couple of shots in the first.
yeah.
And I feel like after that, he sort of got his footing, but he was a bit hesitant, which is understandable.
Yeah, for sure. I think having him out there, though, in the next couple of games, you're going to see Bouchard get a little bit less ice time because they'll probably boost Wallman's ice time and it'll eat up some of those minutes. I haven't yelled at my TV at Darnell Nurse in a while, which is probably good news. But this is the complaints department. So Darnell, when we're being quiet about you, it's because you're playing, better than average. So that's good news for Darnell. And then again, Ekholm, I've been pretty quiet about in a lot of circumstances. And so that's probably good news for the complaints department perspective. Yeah. So that's your complaints department report on the defense. In summary, Evan Bouchard's got my attention this week, just in the last game alone. But overall, we'll give the defense a passing grade. They're just making it a little bit interesting for the goaltending behind them.
Perfect segue, Ahmed. Let's talk about the goaltending.
Well, not like there's not much to talk about there, right? We got Jory back last night, and now we're in a little bit of a pickle here, right? So the team is now in a situation where you have Calvin Pickett's been playing well, relatively well and let's remind everybody he's a backup goalie, and that's all he is, right? You've got Connor Ingram that they're trying to still figure out what's happening. He's had a couple of really solid games. Honestly, watching some of the games, I see some of the saves that he makes, and I'm finding myself asking the question if Skinner would have made that save. And to be honest, a lot of times it's a no, right? Especially if it's in traffic or something like that. It's just he's not only a positional goalie, but he's also kind of finding his game in terms of, his movement from side to side and whatnot. He comes out quite a bit, challenges, which is great. And now Jory comes back last night, and he had somewhat of a decent game. I think he made some really good saves, and then he let in a couple of, so-so goals. But the problem here is not so much the complaint's not about the goaltending situation as far as what they're providing on the ice, because I think the Oilers are now pushing upwards of the 900 save percentage mark, which they haven't had in quite some time. Ingram's at 904, and let's see what Jory does. Jory is historically over 900. Who do you send down? Because now you have three goalies on the team, and the question is, if you send down Pickard, chances are he's going to get picked up, right? As much as we want to complain about the guy, if he's sent down, he's going to get picked up on waivers. If Ingram's sent down, 100% he's getting picked up. There are a couple of teams that need a goalie at the moment, and it's likely that he's gone, and Jory's not going down. So that's the challenge this coming week, is what are the Oilers going to do with the three goalies? The bad part of this whole thing is Jory plays a few games, and even last night some people were saying that he injured himself on the very last play of the game. He might have re-injured his groin. Hopefully not, haven't heard anything, but that's what I've been reading on online. If he goes back down again, and you send Pickard down, and he gets claimed by a different team, then you're just stuck with Ingram, and that's it, and you don't have a backup. So
on a technical side, I'm not sure if this is completely accurate, but Ingram was a recall based on an injury, and I think he gets 9 games or 30 days where he can be at the NHL level before they send him back down. And if he's sent down within that window, then it's not part of the waiver system. So I think that they're right at that limit right now. So if Ingram,
I think they have 5 days to decide, 5 days from yesterday to decide on if they want to send him back down or not. After that, he's waiver eligible.
But he's playing better than Pickard in some ways. He's carried the load a little bit here. He's been consistent with the way he's providing goaltending. So they do want to see what they have in this guy. Right?
Looked good against Chicago, and you're right. Like the idea of let's find out what we have with this before we make bigger decisions. A pretty key component of why he's been getting so much ice time lately.
Yeah.
So, do we want to continue the theme of complaints?
Yeah.
Because I have a few things to talk about with respect to the goaltending. Not necessarily complaints. It's more chiming in with 2 cents on analysis. Do we want to do that now or wait until?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Go for it.
So what I've noticed and I've been pleasantly surprised with Ingram. And I'm not a goaltender, but I try and observe goaltending. Brendan, I'll send you messages and be like, hey, do you have trouble with this shot? Trying to figure this out as a player to try and see if you can beat him. One of the things that I've noticed with Ingram, and I think he does this better than any goaltender that I've seen in recent memory with the Oilers, is I think he has really good feel for the game and hockey sense. I think he reads the play really well.
Exactly.
And I think that that's why, he looks, not saying he's not athletic. He's definitely a lot more athletic than Skinner is. But I think that he looks like he's able to get across more, like quicker, and he looks quicker than he is, because I think he has a feel for the game. And to be honest with you, I thought Jari was like shaky last night. He definitely made a couple good saves, but he's very he's Ranford-esque. He's Mike Smith-esque. He's not very I don't know, reliable. I feel like he'll make the save, but a lot of times he's making that save because he put himself in a position to have to make that save, right? And the couple goals that he just let in, I mean, I'm going to give him a pass because he is coming off of injury. But again, the style that he plays, it really worries me that he's going to, injure himself again, right?
Well, if he's going to be the 1990s Billy Ranford, I'll take him every day of the week, especially in the playoffs.
I don't know about that because we didn't, Brendan, you might remember this because you're probably still in the city watching the bulk of the games. But in the early 90s, we thought Ranford was good until Cujo came along. And we're like, hey, look, he's just as athletic, but he doesn't take as many risks, right?
Well, we do have a Cujo-esque kind of a goalie down in the minors right now in Bakersfield. And there's a lot of rumors. This guy's really phenomenal, 5-0. I know it's pretty early. His name escapes me, but a youngster who's 5-0 and 964.
There's a couple of guys, actually.
Yeah.
A couple guys down there. Nathaniel Day is one of them, and then there's another guy. I forgot his name. But
yeah,
you know what? The podcast that didn't air last week, we were really hard on Dan Bowman, and I think we need to, he deserves a bit of credit with what he's done developmentally down in Bakersfield. Turn the organization around a little bit. We just signed Quinn Hudson. Again, we're supposed to be talking about complaints, so maybe we'll table that and move forward. Anything more to add on the goaltending side?
I'm happy to upgrade my complaints from why can't the Oilers goaltending control the rebound from why can't the Oilers goaltenders make a save. So we're still complaining, but it's just it's a less severe complaint, because I think there's a couple of times last night where the rebound wasn't where it needed to be against Chicago. Like sometimes the rebounds are a little bit scary. But the goalies are at least making the initial save, and now it's on to the defense to kind of clear up the mess and deal with it.
Yeah,
and that's a much better play. That's a much better place to be than they were a month ago.
That's fixable. That's fixable with a little coaching.
I think it's going to take a little bit of time for the goalies and the defensemen to kind of get to know each other as well, their playing styles. And if they see that Ingram or Jari is constantly shooting out these massive rebounds, then hopefully they'll be prepared a little bit better. But somebody's got to teach Evan Bouchard that, though.
Wait for it. It's coming. The rebound is coming. Yeah. He's never seen a rebound in his career with the Oilers.
That's right.
It's either wide or in or straight into the glove. It's one of those three.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the forwards. My biggest complaint was from last night. Can't unsee this. Andrew Mangiapane, what in the heck was he doing on that? Was it I don't remember the time frame. The first goal. Yeah. It was the first goal. I don't remember exactly what the timing was, but like what was he doing there? He gives the puck away, and then he has an opportunity to make up for it, but he just leaves Stamkos open right in front of the net for hours, and it's Steven Stamkos, right? I don't blame Jari on that one because he was caught off the post, but he's got a world-class player who's one-on-one and has options in front of him, and nobody's coming. Right?
Yeah, Stamkos like, hey, I got all the time in the world.
So Mangiapane, I felt like had a pretty decent game the game before. I thought he jumped in, had some jump. I almost take it all back last night. I thought he was noticeably bad. And we've seen maybe 2 or 3 games where I remember saying, okay, yeah, he's playing all right. But there's been like 20 games where there's either he's doing nothing or he's, borderline should be benched, right?
Yeah, that first goal was shocking. If you saw, like, he's trying to make a play at the offensive blue line, it didn't go his way, fine. But then you turn around, you hustle, and then both defenders take the same man. Like, it was a one, two. It was a break for sure. So they're both trying to catch the guy with the breakaway, and no one takes Stamkos the trailer. But somehow the puck ends up on his stick. So which defenseman's trying to get there? Wallman's like, okay, I guess that's my guy. And he's trying to figure it out and getting across the crease to go get him. But in the meantime, you see in the replay, Mangiapane is just dogging his way back up the ice. And then suddenly, like, he has to make a decision. Should I go after the puck carrier, the guy with 600 goals, who's 4 feet away from the net with all the time in the world, or should I take away his passing option because there's another guy back checking? And he decides, you know what? No, I'll just take away the passing option. I'll do a flyby on Stamkos. Like, when what coach taught him to do that? Because I bet it's none of them ever. Like, why? How do you make a decision like that as a forward to just completely abandon the shooter when it's clear the defense doesn't have him? Makes no sense.
Unreal. I mean, Wallman, I'm going to give him a pass as well. He's just a couple shifts in. Coming off of
he kind of bumped into Jari trying to get across the crease too, and that didn't help.
He did, and he kind of did it. Like, it's not like he didn't get there. It's just he kind of skated by him. You know what I mean? And I mean, I feel like Wallman looked bad there because Mangiapane didn't do his job, my opinion, right? Overall, I feel like this is hilarious, and we talked about this last podcast that didn't air again. Leon Draisaitl. I've never been more annoyed with somebody who's like 4th leading scorer in the NHL than I get with this guy, and I love him, but there's some things that he's doing. There's a couple games ago, he's behind the net and he decides that he wants to go end to end, and he gets picked almost twice, but he proceeds to continue and then gets picked at the blue line. And he did that a bunch of times last night, and he ends up with 3 points, and everyone's like, what a strong game he had. And absolutely strong games that he has. But can you imagine an Isaac Howard or a Matt Savoy or even a Andrew Mangiapane trying to do the stuff that he does in his own end that he gets caught with? And they're not going to have the same leash, right? I mean, absolutely annoyed by that. And another complaint I have is, people are going to laugh at me for this, but McDavid, last few games, I feel like we got to go all the way back to the Calgary Flame game where he got hit in front, the one in Calgary where he got smoked. I feel like since that game, I've noticed a few times, Chicago game, blatant. He had a guy turned around, the guy's on the ice, and he turns around and he's still, instead of going to the net, he's trying to feed it over to traffic. It was either Nugent Hopkins or Hyman he's trying to feed, and he's got the lane. And I've seen a few times where he's done that, where I feel like he even surprises himself as to how much space he's got and how much room he's got. Be a bit more aggressive. I know you've got 30 goals. I know you're second in the NHL in scoring, but if there's one thing I would like to see a bit more of is getting back to being aggressive.
How good is it to be an Oilers fan right now when these are the complaints that we have about the team?
Well, on the forward department, yeah, absolutely. But
okay, so special category complaints department. What the hell is with those jerseys last night? Aren't they supposed to be good for 4 goals Monday, a game at least?
We only got 4 goals.
They only got 3 last night. It's underperformance.
Did we play in those jerseys last night as well?
Yeah, so that was the first game of the classic style jerseys that they did not produce 4 goals or more. So maybe it's time to get those jerseys on the sidelines for a while and go back to the regular blues and whites.
I was so fixated on something else, I didn't even notice that. But you're right. Now that I reflect back, it
was a big letdown. I saw them coming into that game, and I thought they weren't going to get the 4 against Chicago, but they got that late goal against Chicago, like at the death. So you knew that goal was 100% jersey related, just to be able to keep that 4 goals plus kind of situation going. So I had to assume that going into overtime last night that they were going to get the overtime winner, because 4 goals plus when those jerseys get rolled out. But no, last night was a big letdown for the good luck jerseys, and that's my complaint. Special complaint for the day.
Enough complaining, guys.
Enough complaining.
So what else do you want to talk about? We're done with the complaints. Maybe focus on some positives.
Well, that's all we do is complain. But I wish
we've got New York tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see Matthew Schaefer. I was going to call him Reed Schaefer, but we're going to see him tomorrow. Excited to see that happen. Islanders are pretty nice story. Seem to have turned their fortunes around. I was questioning them moving on from Noah Dobson, but that they seem like they've completely. I'm not going to say they did a 180, but
it's because they're getting some goaltending this year. I think that's been a big help, and Schaefer's obviously made a pretty huge impact on that defense core.
Yeah,
with the kind of presence that no one expected, or at least that very few expected from such a young kid. So he's eating minutes, he's getting points, he's shutting down very savvy veteran players that he's facing off against, and suddenly, combine that with some decent goaltending and some timely scoring, then it's been a good story so far for the Islanders this year. I think they're going to be a tough out. Even though they're on a pretty challenging Western road trip, I think they're going to be a tough out in that game.
It's going to be interesting to see. Who do you think gets the start tomorrow? You think we're going back to Jari?
Oh, I think that maybe Ingram gets the net again, but they might give it to Jari because they want to get him up and running. I think they're going to try and see as much of Ingram as possible before that deadline comes in and goes on whether or not to return him back to the AHL. Right.
Unpopular opinion in my view is I think they might just end up deciding to go with 3 goalies. The last time that happened, where we had a 3-headed monster, we ended up in the Stanley Cup Finals, right? If I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, we ended up trading for Olsen at the deadline.
And he was amazing.
That's that.
Really good goalies. I haven't forgiven the guy who gave up all the goals in Carolina. Conklin was not one of the 3-headed monster. He was the guy who cost us the cup. And I'm going to stick to that.
Conklin gave up 1 goal, and that was a big one, right? And then he never saw the net again. They went with Markkanen, who I thought he was pretty decent. Yeah.
But that was such a weird year because they had 4 goalies that year, right? They had Markkanen.
Mike Morrison was the shootout.
Mike Morrison, and you get shootout wins, and then they had the trade for Rolison. And in the end, 3 of those 4 goalies are basically out of the picture, and we had Markkanen trying to carry the team into the Stanley Cup, final that didn't work out.
Markkanen did well. He was a good goalie.
I think he did all right, but you know what? I still don't understand this. Okay, McTavish was the coach at the time, and I have a lot of time for McT. I think he's a pretty cerebral guy, very intelligent. And one day we can talk about that second round series against San Jose when he figured out how to beat San Jose. That was unbelievable. They were down 2-0.
Yeah, they were. And
he's happy. We just went down 2-0. He's like, no, but I figured out how to beat them. Genius. But why in the world is Conklin dressed if you're going to end up going with Markkanen as your go-to? Why was Markkanen not dressed? And tough.
We'll never know.
Tough because Conklin. The funny thing is, I remember going to a game. Vancouver Oilers were here in Vancouver, and it was a back and forth game. Edmonton ended up winning that game 7-6. Conklin did the exact same thing that he did in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals in that game. He went behind the net, misplayed it, and they got an open net, and it almost changed the tide of that game because we had control of that game. So I don't know. I don't have that intel. I'm not getting paid a few $1 million a year. Why in the hell did he do that? I don't. It's one of these questions that I think is I'm gonna take it to my grave.
So while we're on that topic, one of my relatives gave me this. They've been keeping it in the archives for years. It's a Edmonton Journal sort of coffee table. It's a printout. It's newsprint, but it details like every single game of the 2006 Stanley Cup Finals, like full stories.
That is really cool.
That was the that series against San Jose. I got a good story for you, but I was living in Fort Mac at the time, but I had tickets for the games because as a season ticket holder, I was splitting with some friends. So I told my wife, who was just my girlfriend at the time, she should go to the game on my behalf. So take the ticket, you can hang out. And my friend's dad, I think, had the other ticket. Like, two of you go to the game, just go basically by yourself and have fun. And there was a couple that was sitting in the same section as them during that game 3, where it was a triple overtime game, right? Horkoff scored. And at the start of the game,
that was game 3 then, right?
That was game 3 of the San Jose series. If they'd lost that game, they would have been down. They would have been down 3-0.
They were down 3-1 in that game. What a game!
Yeah, so they came back. They got it to overtime, and during the game, this couple in front of them, they'd been drinking heavily, and this girl kept spilling her beer onto like the fans around her. She was completely inebriated, and the police show up. They're like, "We're gonna have to escort you out of here because you're drunk. You're spilling your beer everywhere. We're taking both of you." And the other fans in that section are like, "No, we've been trying to deal with this girl the whole time. The guy's fine. He's been trying to like keep her on the rails. He's not causing a scene. It's just this girl who's like spilling her beer everywhere." And the police say, "Okay, fine. Just you then. Come on. You're out of here."
Yeah.
And the girl looks at her boyfriend. This is the story my wife tells me. She's like, the girl looks at her boyfriend and says, "Okay, well, if I'm getting arrested, you're coming with me." And he's like, "No, but the game's on. It's in overtime." Awesome. And she says, "If you don't come with me, we're done." And he looks at his beer, looks at the ice, looks at the crowd's like, "Enjoy your life. It's the playoffs."
Oh, we got to bring that guy on the pod.
I know, right? He got rewarded with that Sean Horkoff triple overtime winner in the end of it. So
awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Oh my God,
so
what a game. That's the game.
Disappointed I missed that one, but I got to a few games in that 2006 run, which were pretty.
That was an amazing. Oh man, I remember myself jumping up and down every goal.
Brendan, maybe that's when your girlfriend decided that you were the one. She'd let her go to that game.
That's right. That must have been it, right? Just the that was like the generous gift that just that guy that she was dating would think of her to send her on that kind of experience as
that's
gift.
She's
returning the favor because she's taking me to the Oiler game this weekend for my birthday.
Saturday, right?
Yeah, so I'll be at the game in Vancouver as the red hot Edmonton Oilers take on the lowly Vancouver Canucks.
At least the goalie looks like the young Skinner. Poor guy. I don't want to poke fun of them. I mean, it's a tough thing they're going through right now, but I think they are trying to maybe somewhat tank to the bottom so they can get a decent player this time around. And their goalie's he's no Demko, that's for sure. Poor guy.
If I was Gavin McKenna, I might just stay in university for another year.
Although there is a thought, there's another guy that's in the running now for top draft pick. It's not just him. He's not clear cut anymore. Man, we should do a pod on that 2006 run. That'd be great. That game 3, what a game, right? That's the one where Rafi Torres took out Mahalik, or was that? No, that was actually game 2 that he took him out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we were down 3-1. We tie it up, and then Pronger hits Ryan Smith in the face, has to go and get dental work, has like no teeth, and he's the one who ends up finding Horkoff, right, for the game winner. What a series! What a game!
I think the magical part of that whole 2006 run is that was a team that no one thought was supposed to be there. They struggled the whole regular season. They finished in 8th spot in the Western Conference, and then they somehow scratched and clawed their way past Detroit, and then suddenly the gates kind of just opened up, right?
Well, it was interesting because I think it came down to the last game of the season. It was between Vancouver, San Jose, and Edmonton. Hemsky had to do some heroic craziness on a breakaway in overtime or something like that to get us back to score that goal to get us into the playoffs. And I think Vancouver had to lose some impossible game, and they did. And San Jose, I think, messed up because had they beat us in regulation, I think they would have been in or something like that. Or no, wait, sorry, San Jose is where we played. It wasn't San Jose, but San Jose did us a favor or something like that. Just all the stars aligned for us to actually get to the playoffs. It could have been a colossal failure when we went out and we got Samsonov, we got Rolison, we got Tarnstrom, we got Spacek. Could have been the end of Kevin Lowe right then and there. Which, I mean, if you look
he gave up a lot of draft. He gave up a lot of pieces to be able to get that team further into the playoffs, and they nearly didn't even make it in the first place.
Yeah,
yeah, they barely made it in from. I think came down to the last game, right?
Yeah,
came down to the last shift of the last game.
It's kind of amazing. Maybe it's just being there at a certain time and age, but I have much fonder memories of the 2006 run to the Cup than I do of the 24 run to the Cup.
That's because we were supposed to beat that punk named Kachuk, and we didn't. And then now they've added the Rat too. It's like a two-headed monster. Everybody in the league hates, and we can't beat them.
Yeah. I think we still had. I mean, it was such a long time that we had a decent team and saw some. There was no Dallas that year, right? And we were still kids, man, at that point, right? Still had the youthful optimism and vigor, which is all.
Let me give you one more like old days story about optimism. And I apologize if I've told this story on the podcast before, but in 1987, things were amazing in Edmonton and in Oilers, hockey land, and they'd just come off winning the Stanley Cup, a few days earlier, and they had a parade that they were organizing downtown. So. Little four-year-old me goes downtown with my dad. We get off the LRT train, and my dad's always late for things, and I was late for things. By the time we get off the LRT, we go up onto the Jasper Avenue street, and the parade's gone. Like all the cars have gone by.
Poor guy.
And the crowd's starting to disperse. And my dad's like, "Oh no, we missed the whole Stanley Cup parade." I said, "Let's get back in the LRT. We'll go up like four or five stations later. We'll go down to like Churchill. We'll get to we'll catch the front of it." My dad says, "Nah, we'll just go next year."
Awesome.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, what do you mean next year?" Like, let's go next year. So guess what we did next year? Next year he took me to the Stanley Cup parade.
That's awesome, man. That's an amazing story.
That's how confident Oilers fans were back in the late 80s that the team would win.
Oh, 87 team was like, wasn't that voted the best team of all time?
I think so. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wish we had something like that. I think on that segue, with the team we have right now, I look at it. I'm trying to be very optimistic about our chances this year, but I see two massive teams in Dallas and Colorado, and I don't know if our team is built to beat these guys. I mean, our goalie is going to have to stand on their heads. Our defense is going to have to be top notch, but what we're really missing is bottom end scoring from the bottom six, and we need a guy like a Zach Cassian or Rafi Torres to offset some of the other teams' big guys who are taking liberties on Connor McDavid. We just don't have it.
Don't worry, I have a plan. I have a plan for this year. It involves the Oilers finishing in second. Somehow Los Angeles will finish in third, so they get to go through the Los Angeles Kings in the first round. They'll end up against Vegas. They've beaten Vegas before. Somebody on Vegas will take a dumb penalty in overtime, maybe like a 5-minute major cross-check to the head, and then Edmonton will score on the power play, righting last year's wrongs. They'll somehow get through Vegas. So that's the first 2-round solve. Now, the interesting piece of my plan is the part where a team like the Utah Mammoth end up in that second wild card spot and somehow have the Cinderella story of all Cinderella stories and defeat the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. Meanwhile, Minnesota and Dallas go to war with each other over 7 games and end up in this war of attrition where both teams are so annihilated after the first 7 games that the second round gets even worse. And by the time we get to the Western Conference, you're going to have an absolute bamboozled Minnesota Wild or Dallas Stars team there for the pickings of the Edmonton Oilers. That's the plan. I know it sounds a lot like the previous 2 years because the previous 2 years worked. Why mess with it? Just roll into that plan and enjoy your way back to the Stanley Cup final. It's ambitious. It's optimistic. It's probably not going to happen, but that's the path for the Edmonton Oilers. If you want to see them in the final again, that's how it's going to happen.
That's awesome. I hope
because they're not going to beat Colorado in a Western final. If the Oilers don't grab one of those top 3 spots, good Lord, imagine playing against Colorado or
even Minnesota. I mean,
yeah,
don't underestimate them.
I think
I don't envy whoever's getting Colorado or even Vegas in that first round. I just don't think that's a good matchup. But it could,
Man.
it could work out for somebody, but it's going to be one hell of a story. Who did it before? I mean, Edmonton played against Detroit going back to 2006. Like Detroit was a powerhouse team.
Stacked.
And
Yep.
like they finished something like 30 points ahead of Edmonton in the standings, and they somehow knocked them off in that 1-versus-8 situation.
Yep.
It can happen. Who was it set the record recently? And was it
Florida made it all the way to the finals in 2023.
there was
when they
somebody a
played
couple of years ago who finished way
Vegas.
ahead and they got knocked out in the first round by like the 8th seed. Like it can happen. But I
What if-
think that, yeah, I don't want to be anywhere near Colorado in that playoff series at all. Not a
I don't know.
chance.
I think it's a 7-game series. I think anything can happen. Playoff hockey is a lot different than just the regular season in the NHL. We're definitely not there now. But I mean, it's only January, right?
Maybe a good time to
thinking-
visit the standings. Something I've noticed, I think all the hockey fans that pay attention are picking up on, is just how incredibly close the playoff cut line and the chase pack is from the teams that are in at this point. Like Edmonton, if they go on a 3-game losing streak, suddenly you're not in your second spot in the division or competing for first spot in the division. You're basically hanging on to a wild card spot and you might be out of the playoffs in 3 games. Obviously you can't do a 9-game skid like the Ducks did and kind of just like eliminate yourself from contention. They're a young team that I think they had a really brilliant start and they've kind of come back to earth pretty hard. But just looking at teams like Utah, who are playing some good hockey right now, suddenly they're catching up. Seattle's catching up. Seattle's right there. They win some games in hand. They're going to pass Edmonton. So you just can't take your foot off the gas. Every single point counts. And if you have a little bit of a falter, it could be something that could be fatal to your playoff chances.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I don't know if we need another pod. We're running short on time here, but one of the things, Ahmed, you mentioned we don't have a whole lot of secondary scoring from the bottom lines. I've been very critical of Trent Frederick, and he had a really strong game in Chicago. I don't think he ended up on the score sheet, but he looked like we saw glimpses, and more than glimpses. I mean, pretty much almost every shift there, he looked like he was driving the offense. He was creating chances, playing pretty decent defensively. He wasn't as noticeable last night, but it wasn't that big of a drop off. And this could possibly be, the turnaround. Maybe he's a little bit healthier. Maybe his dad kicked the crap out of him on this dad trip and was like, "What are you doing? You're embarrassing me here, boy." But we need that guy to get going.
Yep.
Roslovic, I mean, I feel like he's. I like what they've done with the second line. I think adding Kapanen, he's been really good since he's come back, and they're developing some really good chemistry. I think for the team, for the betterment of the team, because Roslovic is a driver, I think it'd be great to have him on the third line, but I don't think he's a center. I think that he's much more effective on the wing. I feel like we need a third line center right now. And I'm not sure who's going to step in, but we're only I don't think we're as far away from it as possible. The other thing I was realizing as well when Wallman stepped back in is we have been pretty decimated with injury, right? And I feel like giving that responsibility to guys like Lazar and Savoy and, even Ike Howard a little bit, unfair at this stage in their careers, right? So I'm holding out some hope that we're going to be able to solve this bottom 6 problem. At the very least, I feel like if we can be 50-50, not give up more than we are able to score, just kind of tread water, I think we have the edge again, top 2 lines, right?
I have your solution. I don't know if you're going to agree with it, but it'll obviously cross Coach Knobloch's mind at some point, is that you have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins playing on the wing on the first line. He's your third line center. And then you put Roslovic up with Hyman and McDavid. That's
either that,
That's still
or
going to
you
give
do
Hopkins is still going to have time on the power play. He'll be fine. Like
e-
he can get some third line minutes.
either you do that or you maybe move Ike Howard side and
Yeah.
you keep Roslovic with Nugent Hopkins because they've got some chemistry together. And I mean, I feel like you know you don't want to break up one of the best lines in hockey, but I think eventually for the betterment of the team, that might be the best way to go.
And what scares me about Roslovic at center is that he just doesn't have the reads in the defensive end that the center is often required to make. And it nearly cost the Oilers a game last night. I think I'm going to look at my notes here. I think there's about 6 minutes left, and the defense had been kind of scrambled because they were responding to something. Sorry about that. They were responding to something, and there was no defenseman in front of the net. There's 6:14 left in the third period, and Roslovic was the guy covering net front presence. He did not.
Been the same
He did
since
not. He did not see his man coming in behind him, and the pass made it there. And Jari had to make a great save. That was with about 6 minutes left in the third. But a more experienced center would have picked up that guy coming in as the threat, and Roslovic went to the right place, but he didn't even see the guy behind him. So that's a big concern.
That is a big concern. The one thing, you know, I think us as fans don't really see is guys like Roslovic. They're highly skilled, right? But this is the NHL. He's not really playing a ton of center in the NHL, but also, you know, going through the ranks, and this is something that we just don't take into account for, which I think we should, and maybe we'll be a little bit better, a little bit more, you know, lenient or forgiving on players. It's that at this level you don't have the puck as much as you did back in junior, back in the AHL even, and so there isn't a lot of time to learn off puck movement, and it's super hard with the center, especially centers in today's NHL compared to, you know, the systems and stuff that they play. It's a lot less free flowing, right? So it's a lot less forgiving. And so if somebody's been playing wing and then are being asked to go to center, it's a pretty big at this level is what I'm saying. Even if you have previous experience playing center, because I think every one of these guys probably played center growing up because they're probably the best player on their team, right? And I feel like not that I'm making excuses for that. I'm just saying that it's a tough ask, and it would be. I mean, I don't know what the solution is, but I think the best solution would be probably to drop Nugent Hopkins down just because of that, because he does have experience in this system playing that position. Right?
We never heard what the timeline on Henrique is, other than he's not probably back until at least the end of the Olympics, right? So
Henrique can't play center anymore. I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the solution, because a couple of years ago he did really well on the top two lines. I think he had some chemistry with Mcdavid when everybody else was out, right?
But it just exposes a potential situation to address before they head into the playoffs, right? If they have any cap room, any reason to make an acquisition, you know, just having a little more sturdiness on that third line to be able to play tough defensive minutes is going to be a key component
You mean a guy
of success.
Like a guy like Noah Felp?
I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy, but you want somebody who is that, you know, has some experience, has the capability to eat some minutes and keep the puck out of your own zone as the third line checking center.
Just going to the fact he's 6'4", right-handed shot, size, skate. Maybe not necessarily him, but maybe an opportunity for him to develop into that guy, which we just have not. We've just not done, right? We'd rather go out into the open market. I'm not sure who else is available, but hopefully it's not like a Nick Butte. I mean, that's probably what's going to end up happening. We're going to get another Nick Butte stat come in to fill that void, and we're going to give up a bit of the future again, right?
Yep, they love their veterans, especially at the deadline.
Yeah. We should be wrapping it up here. We're getting close to the hour. Anything else to chime in on? We've got Islanders, then we've got Hockey Day in Canada. Just going to pull up the schedule here.
I don't have my press pass anymore, so I'll give you a full report from the stands of Rogers Arena here in Vancouver. Is
To back, eh?
Saturday night, yeah.
They're back to back. They've got 3 games in 4 nights. So it's Islanders Thursday, break on Friday, Saturday's Canucks, Sunday's the Blues, Sunday's the Blues, and then Tuesday's the Devils, Thursday's the Penguins. A lot of straight games here. Capitals. These are all, I think, every game except for Vancouver's at home.
I'll have to give Hofer some advice about what the best hiding places in Rogers and Edmonton are when he's trying to avoid the ice. Played in hide and seek with Montgomery.
Interesting. So I think we're definitely going to see Ingram in at least 2 of these games, I would say, upcoming games.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I mean, so what do we got? Our Brendan's big is this isn't the first game you're going to GM Place or Rogers Arena or whatever, is it?
No, I went a few years ago to a game. It was fun. Jujark Harris scored a goal at that game, and his whole family was in attendance. And they jumped up. That's pretty fun.
Nice. So predictions for the next 3?
I think the Oilers are gonna go with another tough single point against the Islanders, and then they'll pick up wins against Vancouver and St. Louis.
And then what about the Devils on Tuesday? I guess we're gonna have the pod on Tuesday, but
we'll leave the Devils till later.
Yeah, we'll park it till later.
I won't air
if
though.
I have to make a prediction, I'd say they'd probably beat the Devils this time around. My 2 cents.
Are we gonna have Dougie Hamilton in the lineup by Tuesday, you think?
Depends what our museums are like. If they have any good exhibits going on, he'd rather spend his time there than hanging out at the club with his teammates.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Take a dig at a guy.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a little culture, right?
That's right.
Okay, guys, let's wrap this up. It was great chatting again. We'll see you guys in a week. Hopefully we'll have a few more strings of W's. Thanks again for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you all